was deserted, cloaked in the kind of stillness that made even the faintest sounds seem deafening. Emma adjusted her backpack and tightened her grip on the walking stick, her boots crunching against the gravel as she pushed further into the woods. The air was crisp, but there was an unusual heaviness to it, a sensation that prickled at the back of her neck. The sun had long disappeared behind a canopy of towering pines, leaving the world around her draped in shadows. She didn't mind hiking alone. It was her way of unwinding, of escaping the endless noise of city life. But tonight, something felt off. The dense forest seemed too quiet, as though every living thing had suddenly gone still. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves, just the sound of her own breathing and the rhythmic crunch of her steps. Emma paused, her eyes scanning the darkened path ahead. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. Turning, she shone her flashlight behind her, the beam cutting through the thick blackness. Nothing, only trees and the faint shimmer of dew on the underbrush. She let out a breath, her lips curling into a nervous smile. "Get a grip, Emma," she muttered, her voice sounding unnaturally loud in the stillness. She pressed on, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger with every step. It wasn't paranoia, it was something primal, an instinct she couldn't ignore. Then she heard it, a soft rustle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She stopped dead in her tracks, holding her breath. The sound came again, this time closer, like footsteps crunching through fallen leaves. "Hello," she called out, her voice trembling. There was no response. She scanned the trees with her flashlight, her heart hammering in her chest. If someone's there, this isn't funny. Silence. And then another noise. This time it was louder, heavier, as though something large was moving just out of sight. Emma's stomach twisted. It wasn't the cautious steps of a hiker or the random scurry of an animal. These footsteps were deliberate, purposeful, and too heavy to be human. A shadow darted across the corner of her vision, and Emma spun around, her flashlight trembling in her hands. She caught a glimpse of something, a figure, tall and impossibly thin, moving between the trees. She backed away, her pulse thundering in her ears. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible now. The forest seemed to close in around her, the air growing colder. She stumbled backward, her flashlight beam catching glimpses of twisted branches and gnarled roots. And then she saw it, standing just beyond the reach of the light, a shape that defied logic. Its limbs were too long, its movements unnervingly smooth, and its face, or lack of one, was obscured by shadow. It stepped closer, and Emma felt a scream rise in her throat, but no sound came out. She turned and ran, her feet pounding against the trail as the forest blurred around her. Behind her, the sound of its pursuit was deafening, branches snapping, leaves crunching, something that wasn't running but gliding effortlessly through the woods. Emma's legs burned as she sprinted, her flashlight swinging wildly. The trail seemed endless, and the faint glow of her car's headlights in the distance felt impossibly far. She could feel it gaining on her, the air around her growing colder with every step. Finally, she broke through the tree line, her car just a few yards away. She didn't dare look back. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking so badly that it took 3 tries before she unlocked the door. Slamming it shut behind her, she started the engine and floored the gas. As she sped away, the forest loomed in her rearview mirror, dark and silent. But just before the road curved, she saw it standing at the edge of the trees, watching her with unblinking eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Emma didn't stop driving until she reached the lights of the nearest town. Even then, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had chased her wasn't confined to the forest. It had seen her, It knew her, and it wasn't finished.